The future of Iowans happens to lay in the hands of COVID 19. These three following stories come from my local news station, KWWL, in regards to Iowa and the COVID crisis. First up, April 30th, Iowa reports 19 more COVID 19 deaths and 373 new cases. There were 373 new confirmed cases from 10 a.m. Thursday to 10 a.m. Friday, according to the state's dashboard, bringing the state total number of cases to 364,776. The state's website says that of the 364,776 people who have tested positive, 347,194 have recovered. This is 586 more recoveries than what the state reported Thursday. The state is reporting 19 additional COVID-19 deaths with a death toll of 5,950. Subtracting the number of recoveries and the number of deaths from the total number of cases shows that there are currently 11,632 active positive cases in the state. As of Friday morning, there were 34 patients hospitalized in Iowa within the last 24 hours, and the total number of hospitalizations is 191, which is up from 184. Of those, 44 are in the ICU, same as on Thursday, and 22 are on ventilators, which is down from 25. In Iowa, there were 2,769 people tested in the last 24 hours, and the total of 1,710,140 people have been tested for COVID-19. As of Friday morning, according to the state's COVID-19 vaccine dashboard, 2,222,768 total doses have been administered to Iowa residents, and 1,041,462 individuals have completed the series. This is 20,367 more completed vaccinations than on Thursday. The number of vaccinations has definitely toyed with the numbers a bit, but it is good to keep in mind that all of these totals come together in order to create a full picture of what the COVID crisis has done to Iowans. Moving on. The next article will be Dr. Fauci, be sure to get your second dose vaccines. About 8% of Americans who have received one dose of either Pfizer or Moderna COVID-19 vaccines have not returned for their second shot. That's according to Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's top infectious disease expert. He says it's important for those getting one of the two-dose vaccines to complete their course to gain maximum protection against the virus. Speaking during a White House briefing, he pointed to several scientific studies showing significant benefits of the second shot, including reducing the risk of infection and strengthening the response of the immune system to the virus. Says Fauci, get vaccinated, and if you're getting a two-dose regimen, make sure that you get the second dose. According to the Iowa Department of Public Health's online COVID-19 dashboard, just over 1 million people are fully vaccinated. So there is definitely a trend in these COVID-19 vaccinations, and in times of crisis, we all want to look to some higher power or leader to guide us in the right way, which leads me to my third and final story. President Biden laid out his plan for the future, and here is what it means for Iowa. In his speech to Congress Wednesday evening, President Biden laid out an ambitious agenda, including $2 trillion America Families Plan that would cover universal pre-K, tuition-free community college, and expanded child care tax credits. So, I wanted to hear a plan to focus on rural America, and instead we got more free stuff and fluff, Congresswoman Ashley Hinson, RIA1, said. I'm disappointed that there wasn't a priority on the issues that really affect our working families than our small businesses. I heard more government, more regulation, and more taxes that Iowa families and our Iowa farmers will have to bear. Dr. Chris Larmier, professor of political science and coordinator for the Master of Public Policy program at UNI, said President Biden covered a lot of ground on policies that appeal strongly to the Democratic base. Minimum wage, child care payments, education, and several social issues, Larmier said. What was interesting to me is that all of this was framed in terms of really keeping up with China and sort of an external threat from China in terms of economic competition. Hinson said she was pleased to hear President Biden talk about the importance of community health centers and infrastructure, two issues she said she'd hoped to work for the aisle on. President Biden extended an olive branch to Republicans like Hinson during his speech, inviting them to work with him on these major proposals. Republicans called on Biden to scale back his proposals, describing the president's infrastructure plan as a liberal wish list. I do think that there's potential we can work together on the package. I do think that it needs to be more targeted than what the proposed last night, Hinson said. My biggest priority is making sure that Iowa's roads and bridges are safe for people to drive and our locks and dams system is up and running at its highest potential. The state's 2019 infrastructure report card from the American Society of Civil Engineers was a C. Roadways received a C+, and bridges were awarded a D. The report found 1/5 of the state's bridges are considered structurally deficient. Biden touted the $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief package Congress passed along party lines. Biden says he plans to pay for package by raising taxes on corporations and the wealthy. I believe what I propose is fair, fiscally responsible, Biden said. Biden's high-cost programs total around $6 million. Hinson said she's concerned with the price tag and Democrats are spending money on the country doesn't have. I just don't think these spending plans exercise that Iowa common sense, Hinson said. On their own, issues like paycheck fairness, background checks, and universal pre-K education are popular with the American public. But with Republicans framing it as unnecessary, expensive packages, Larmier said Democrats would have their work cut out to sell them and the American people on it. The challenges for Democrats, the one for Biden administration, is going to be how do they get away from what the Republican frame, Larmier said. This is not going to go into the poll well for them if they're talking about big government, but if they isolate these individual policies, there's a potential to support here. Larmier said framing the programs as combating external threats such as economic competition could be a way to garner support. President Biden also called on Congress to pass the George Floyd policing and reform bill and a $15 minimum wage. Our small businesses have come to me and said that would kill us and break our backs, especially coming out of the pandemic, she said. This is 1-2 punch that many small businesses just won't be able to survive. Going into the speech, Hinson was eager for President Biden to address the situation at the southern border. While the president did lay out his plan for immigration reform, Hinson said it was misguided. The biggest security threat right now is the gaping holes in our border, Hinson said. Ultimately, we can't really focus on immigration reform until we stop the crisis at our border. Larmier said it is not necessarily Biden's word, but what was behind him and Vice President Kamala Harris and the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi that the history books will remember. This is the potential to have a very significant effect moving forward for our political system and electoral politics in terms of women running for office, he said. Seeing those two women in the most powerful positions outside the presidency right there on camera all night was incredibly historic. As you can see, these stories combine to show a future of how Iowans will be able to consider going forward with their lives. Thank you. This is Abigail Rolling.